Hi, I'm Susie Burney and I'm from the Irish Coalition for People Living with Obesity, and we have two of our members who are going to share some of their experiences. Now, Shell was to be here today, but she got a sudden appointment for her child, which she's been waiting on for a long time. So we did a pre-record, so you can watch that. But if you have any questions for Shell, she said reach out through us and we can ask her. If you directly want to ask her about her experience, she'll follow up with you. And we have Tracy who's here. So we might as well go straight into it. Are you going to play Shell's first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Shell. I'm delighted you could join and share your story today. So I think we might get straight into it. Shell, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and I suppose the point that led up to having bariatric surgery?
Yeah. Well, I'm Shell. I'm 43. I'm married with 2 kids. I was always on the chubby side growing up. When I was born, I was nearly 12-pound weight. A lot of my weight, though, went on after the death of my father when I was 10. And I turned to food for comfort for that. And then I experienced quite a lot of abuse when I was younger as well, physical and emotional. So food was definitely a comfort for that. So then I was referred to the weight management clinic in 2004 by my GP. And then I had my first appointment in 2006.
And how did you feel at that point? Like, I mean, you would have tried, I suppose, and tested many things about your weight over the years, many diets, I assume. How did you feel going to a weight management service?
I had tried every single diet under the sun, Weight Watchers, shakes, everything like that, and absolutely nothing helped. I actually felt quite a failure that I had let myself get that bad, that I needed expert help, if you know what I mean, to regain control of my eating, because back then there wasn't the support that there is now. You were just overeating. You were told stop eating so much and you won't gain the weight. So basically you were made to feel like it was all your fault all the time, so I was very, very nervous, and that about my first appointment coming up. Yeah.
Grand. And you went through the service and had all of your meetings and you met all the team. When it came to the first discussion about surgery, were you aware of surgery, or, how did that conversation come about?
I was aware of the surgery. And I remember having my meeting with Mr. Gagan himself, and he said to me that because my weight was at 217 kgs, that the bypass possibly would not be an option for me. It wouldn't be safe, but that there was another surgery. Now, when he said that, initially my heart sank. Like, I was like, oh my God, this is it. I'm not going to get any help. And then he said to me that there was another surgery that could do the gastric sleeve, and explained everything about the sleeve to me and told me that that would be the better option for me. And then going on my success with that, if the bypass was still needed, that would be done at a later date.
Okay, so is this the surgery then that you had? You had more than one surgery. Do you want to explain maybe the time frame and how that all worked?
Yeah, I had the gastric sleeve on the 5th of December 2011, and I was blessed to lose 10 stone with that and continue to maintain that off. And then I was approached the start of 2017 about the possibility of the bypass, and I jumped at the chance of it, like having had success with the sleeve. I wanted to continue it. At that stage, I was still about 24 stone, so I still had a good bit more weight to go. And yeah, I was delighted to be given the option to have the second surgery. Some people aren't even lucky enough to get one, and here I was getting 2, and I was just delighted with it. So I had that then in August 2017.
And is there anything, Shell, you could compare about the two surgeries, like your recovery time or the weight loss or how you felt? Is there anything that was different about them, or were they similar?
Definitely the emotional side of it, going in for the sleeve, I was absolutely petrified. I had never had a surgery like that before. I'd never been put under anesthetic at that weight. I was so terrified. I had written letters to my husband and my daughter. I had wrote pages out of how the bills were to be paid, what was to be paid, when was it was to be paid. I'd made you know what I mean? I was fully convinced that I was not going to come round from this, and that was it. And then I remember waking up in the recovery ward, and I was just so elated that I'd actually woken up. So my mind was a bit more at ease going in for the bypass. I knew I was down 10 stone compared to what I was. You know, chances were the anaesthetic would be fine, everything would go well, and thankfully it did. Recovery, I was actually sore after the bypass than I was the sleeve. It took me a lot longer to recover after the bypass. Now, I don't actually know why, just the incisions I think were a bit sore or whatever. Maybe it was because they went in through the same holes and it was open scar tissue or whatever, that could possibly be why. But yeah, no, I was up and walking around and stuff like that. It didn't limit what I was doing or anything, you know, so.
And can I ask, Shell, I mean, I know your quality of life vastly improved with, you know, having had bariatric surgery, but were there any surprises after surgery, something that you hadn't expected that might have changed for you post-surgery?
Pain. Before surgery, I wouldn't have been very, very active, like walking, and that would have been an issue for me. It would have been quite sore and that. But then the more active that I got, I actually got sorer, and I realized that the damage that my weight had done to my joints, I've arthritis nearly in every joint in my body. I've no cartilage left whatsoever from the pressure of the weight being pushed down on top of it. So every single day, like, I am taking painkillers, I'm on a pain management from my doctors, the whole lot. It's pain now is really, really, really the worst thing. So it is.
And was that a hard adjustment when we know in society people see the weight loss and they think now you're living your best life and everything, I suppose, is seen as being fixed? You know, was it hard then to cope with the pain considering everything else seemed to be vastly improved for you?
Yeah, no, it definitely was, and still is. Like, there's days where I don't want to get up and do things, you know what I mean, because it hurts too much. People's perception is, like, they see you after losing the weight, and a lot of it is, oh, you had surgery. Oh, right. So you took a quick fix. You know what I mean? They don't see the work, the hard work that goes into it. Like, it's a lifelong change. It doesn't fix your head. It doesn't fix the reasons why you eat, you know, but yeah, no, the pain now is quite hard to deal with. And that is the main thing that I struggled to get used to, this new thing that was in my life. You know what I mean? Even on days that I'm not active, I'm still in pain. Whereas before the surgery, it was only when I was walking, I'd get pain.
Yeah.
Like, nothing else hurts.
Yeah. So following that then, would you think you have any regrets at all, Shell?
Not a single one. I would do it again in the morning. Like, I would not have my son. I had my son in between my two surgeries, and I wouldn't have had him if I hadn't had the initial surgery, because there was no way I would have been able to carry a baby at 34.5 stone, you know. So I would not, my life has increased tenfold. I've climbed to the top of the Statue of Liberty. I've done so much stuff that I could have never even dreamed of doing when I was at my heaviest weight, you know. And it really is life-saving and life-changing. I'd do it again in the morning.
Great. Thanks, Shell. You've been very honest. And if anybody has any specific questions they'd like to follow up, would that be okay if they could get in touch through us?
Absolutely, yeah.
Great. Okay. Thanks a million, Shell. That's
no
great.
problem. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
In her absence?
Just on that, on that, just when the question was asked earlier about the time for when you go through your appointments to when you are called for surgery, Shell was referred to the service in 2004, and she had her first bariatric surgery in 2011. And what ICPO wants to do is pick up that gap, to be there, because we have weekly online support meetings, we chat, we share our stories. That was hard to watch back, because I was obviously chatting with Shell and trying to bring out some of her story that I knew. But when she was saying the bit about writing letters to her husband, I still, the tears are there. And this is what we're seeing in the groups, that people think surgery is a quick fix, and it is far from it. So I hope, if anything else, you remember that. But Tracy's going to chat with us now.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Tracy, and I'm very, very, very nervous. I've never spoken to anybody, let alone professionals or anything like this before. I guess start just talking to my kids when they're all together. I'm 46 now, just turned 46, and I was always kind of big as a child, and then I lost my parents when I was 6 within the space of 3 weeks, and I had a brother and a sister, and we were all separated. And I don't know what they say, traumatic. I don't know whether I was eating because I was 6. I don't know really, but I got moved then when I was about 10 to another auntie, my dad's side of the family, and they were all big. They were all big. So I went from a house where I had breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and kind of a treat once a week, to my dad's side of the family to having chocolate every day, takeaways, everything. So, and then something happened, and I was brought back to the family where I was before. I was 12, 13, and I discovered in boys, I started taking up karate and netball, and I was kind of slim for a while. I was 17 when I met my partner now, and I got pregnant, and then all the sport stopped, and I started eating, and I went to my first Weight Watchers meeting when I was 19, 20, and I was 13 stone 3, and I was horrified. I came home and I cried. I couldn't believe I was that weight, but it didn't stop me. It didn't stop me eating. I continued to eat and continued to eat. Had another baby, and still continued to eat. It was affecting my relationship, as in we couldn't sleep together because the weight was causing me snoring. Like he just couldn't sleep in the bed with me because I snored that bad. So I went to the doctor and I said that I was tired all the time, even though I felt I was getting enough sleep. He was coming to bed, he was a night owl, so he was coming to bed at say 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was getting up and sleeping on the couch. So, but I still felt I was getting enough sleep, but I was still knackered, so I was getting knee pain, went to the doctor. I can't remember exactly when it was. It was probably about 2005 maybe, and she said to me, well, your knee pain, she says, I don't want to state the obvious, but it's obviously something to do with your weight. And I said, yeah, I know. And she said, have you ever heard of Columcille? And I said, no. And she said, I'm going to refer you, and I'll also refer you for a sleep study. So I said that was fine. I got a letter to Columcille to say I was referred, and there was a waiting list of about 2 years, I think, at the time. And I'd get a letter every year just to see if I was still interested, and I was, of course. So I got my first appointment. I actually think I was about 5 years waiting. So I got my first appointment in January 2020, and that was my group appointment. And then I met all the team then in February, and then COVID hit. So there was no meetings. I had one about 6 months later over the phone, and then the rest of them were kind of over the phone. And then my neighbour, her daughter, she was big as well, she went to Turkey. I didn't really know about surgeries. That's why I'd looked up Columcille on the internet, and they said, like, it was just, there was no mention of surgery. It was all dietitians, doctors, psychologists, and so I didn't know about surgery. Then my neighbour's daughter went over to Turkey and then I started thinking, researching, and I'd done a lot of research, and in that research is where I found Susie, because I was on the Bariatric Ireland page, and that's where I found Susie, and she invited me to the Columcille page, and I got to talking to Susie about surgeries, and I went to all the meetings, no matter where I was. Tracy in the car, they called me because I was because no matter where I was, I travelled for work, so no matter where I was, I'd always stop at whatever time and join the meetings because I was so interested in it. So I done a lot of research, and I spoke to the team. I had a face-to-face meeting with the team, and I spoke to them. I said, I'm thinking about going for surgery abroad. I said, because how long am I going to be waiting here? Because I've already been on the list about 5 years, and how much more am I going to be waiting? And they said could it be about 3 years? And I was like, oh, I really can't wait that long. It's affecting my relationship. Even my kids could hear me snoring, like, you know. So, and it wasn't good for us or me. I'd then diagnosed with sleep apnea as well. It was moderate sleep apnea, and I researched then Turkey. And I decided I was going to do it. And I said it to the team, and I said, look, I don't want to be taking anybody's place here. I said, I'm going to go abroad for surgery. I said, if you want to take me off your books. And they said, well, no, like, we'll be here for you. If that's what you want to do, we'll be here for you kind of when you get back. Like, so I was very grateful for that. Now, I think one person did kind of say, well, have you really researched it? Because there's dumping, there's everything. Like, I said, yeah, I really have looked into it, and it's something that I really want to do. So I was doing it, and kind of that was that. So I booked to go in April of last year, but it was 2021, and it was COVID, and the flights were cancelled. So no, the flight were not cancelled, sorry. We had to go into a hotel when we came home for isolation and pay €1,500, and I wasn't doing that. So I booked it for July then. So I was going on my own. I'd met a few to the hospital where I was going. They had a Facebook page, and I'd met a few girls that were travelling over. So I met them in the airport, and I sat on the plane, and I FaceTimed my daughter, my sons, my partner, my sisters, my brothers, bawling, crying on the plane, thinking I wasn't coming back. I was excited to get it done, because I knew it was going to be life-changing, but I honestly didn't think I was coming back, and people must have thought there was something wrong with me on the plane, because I was just I had a mask on me. I was bawling, crying, saying goodbye to everybody, and my family were very supportive of me going, because they knew I wanted it done and it was going to be life-changing. So they were supportive for me to go. So I got over to Turkey, and I have to say, the care I got was absolutely amazing. The tests that they done. I was lucky because, I'd seen in the groups, like, the amount of people that were going to Turkey was just phenomenal. Like, and there was people, their flights were being cancelled, and they were travelling by 2 trains, 2 planes, like, to get to go to Turkey. Like, and I don't, some were big, and some, like, they put photographs, some were big and needed surgery, but some were not. And I'd be like, why are you going over there? Like, why are you taking the chance, like, to go over there? But they were doing it anyway for themselves. But the English weren't allowed to travel to Turkey at the time, so I was lucky that, I don't know whether, like I said, the care I got was fantastic, but I'm not sure if I'd have got that care if there was 10, 11 surgeries that day. I was lucky there was only 3. There was only 3 of us, because the English couldn't travel. There was a lot of English. So the care, I was out shopping in Turkey 3 days later. Like, I had no pain whatsoever afterwards. I vomited a lot after surgery, but I had no pain. The nurses they were only young, but they were absolutely amazing. Like, it was just, the care I got was just outstanding. The place was spotless. It was just amazing, and the surgery was amazing. So I came home on the plane. I actually changed my flights, because Aer Lingus were only starting their flights, and I wanted a direct flight. I didn't want to change flights, so I changed my flight, and there was about 60 of us on the plane, 50, 60 of us on the plane. Everyone had surgery. Every one of us had surgery in different hospitals around Turkey. Like, I was so surprised. There was about 3 from my hospital, and the rest were from different hospitals. Like, so. But I got home, I was grand. I had no dumping, no nothing, no pain whatsoever. Incisions were fine, never got any infections or anything like that. And it was only, I keep saying I'm only down 6 stone now at the minute, but 6 stone is a lot, and it has changed my life, like, dramatically. Like, I've no knee pain anymore. I still use my CPAP machine, because I don't know whether I still have sleep apnea or not, but I still use it, because I just don't think I'd be able to sleep without it. So I went from 29, what do you call it, OSAs, do they call it? Yeah. Or APAs? AHIs, yeah, to now 0.5 average, so with the machine. And I can sleep in the bed with my partner. So that's good. That's sorted our relationship out. Yeah, I've no regrets. The only regret is that I didn't find out about sooner, and I would have done it. Like, I'm not, like, if you look at me now, I feel like I'm 16.6, I think I am at the moment, and I was 22 and I went for the surgery. I feel good, but I also feel like that I should have lost more. Like, my food is fine, as in breakfast, lunch, dinner, but I never liked chocolate, and now I've got an awful, I don't drink, I don't smoke, so I've just become addicted to chocolate now, and I've put on, say, 1/2 stone, and I'm feeling like a failure at the moment, because I went through all this and now I'm putting on weight again. Now when I stand on the scales and I see that I've gone up, I kind of get a fright, and then I cut back, and then I lose that, and then I go back again, have one bad day, and then I'm back again. But yeah, so I think that's all of me, I think.
And you were worried you were going to forget something.
I think I didn't know I have not sweating here.
I think
No.
you're right at this point.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Thank you.
Has anybody any questions directly about Tracy's experience of going abroad or her feelings about it or anything? Like, if she doesn't want to answer it, she won't, but just ask, because be good.
Make one comment before questions is, again, I think from Shell's and your own story there, the thing that resonated with me was, I think which we take for granted, is the fear you had going into surgery. Both of you felt like this is the end.
Yeah.
I'm not coming back. And I think that tells an awful lot about what it's like to live with obesity, that you're prepared to take, that you're saying
die. Yeah.
That's how desperate people are, and how misunderstood they are, and how marginalised they feel, that they just can't go on with it. So I thought it was very powerful. So thanks for that.
Maura, one of our advocates, she tells her story. It's quite funny the way she says it. She's quite funny. She said that on the day she was 57 going for surgery. So for her it was age. Why am I doing this at this age? And she was in her gown, she said, doing the walk of shame because you're worried that your bum is hanging out, walking down for surgery, and she suddenly said, I can't do this. What am I doing? And she said to them, I need the bathroom. And she sat in the bathroom. She thought, how can I get my car keys? I don't care driving home in the gown. Just how do I get out of this hospital? And she said, then all of a sudden, she actually just, I don't know why it was an apple tart, but she said, if I go home, I'll buy an apple tart and I'll eat that in one day to comfort myself. No, I need surgery. I need surgery. But it was that fear. It's exactly what you said. And so that I think we're counteracting that all the time. People think it's a quick fix, a quick decision. Because what you said about some people on the plane who are, you would look at them and think they don't need surgery. Maybe they've already lost 6 stone, but their weight is still impacting their health. So we can make a judgment of who needs it and who doesn't. And we were talking about this. You said about Weight Watchers being horrified at 13 stone. Yeah. And nearly all of us can remember that going up in weight. I remember standing on a beach trying to get a wetsuit on, couldn't get it, everybody else was gone. I was 21 years old or something, and 13 stone was horrific. I've been up to 25 stone, bariatric surgery 11 stone, regained because I still have all the core reasons for obesity, 19 stone. I'm now on medication, 16 stone. Perfectly happy at 16 stone. It's now my best weight, what you heard Jean say earlier. And that again is we're trying to, like my heart, like when Tracy says she feels a failure, we're all the time trying to remind people surgery is only just one tool, and it may be only temporary for you to treat you, and if you need more treatment, that's fine, you know. So, but is there any direct questions about the Turkey, like the clinic or anything Tracy's willing to talk about?
Thank you so much for sharing that.
No problem.
It's brilliant. I just had a question in relation to when you came home after your surgery. Did you kind of have a go-to back in Turkey that you could call or email to ask any maybe dietary questions, or if things came up?
Yeah, they were very supportive. We had to send bloods off, say 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and then 12 months, and then the surgeon would look at it and tell us if we needed to take B12 or if there was that low or anything like that. They were there 24/7 for any questions that we needed. But I didn't have much questions. Any questions I had, I always asked on the weekly meetings, or any professionals that they had on, I always asked. So if I hadn't got this support here from the ICPO or the weekly meetings, I think I would just be, I don't know where I'd be, to be honest.
I think that's coming full circle to the fear and the anxiety people living with obesity face. So when they come to this service, I remember myself, my very first appointment, that you're only listening to half what's told. And then you go away and you know you have to have certain criteria for like what you have to do following surgery. And we hear it on meetings, people say, nobody ever told me I can't take anti-inflammatories. They probably might have been told, but they're in such an anxious state at their appointments, it doesn't stay in. So on our meetings, we don't say that we advise anybody anything or we don't tell anybody anything. What we do is I share my experience, Shell shares hers, and people go, oh, I didn't know. And that's the peer support is fantastic for that.
That's absolutely amazing. I'd be lost without it. No, lost without it. And I still have an appointment here, which I have now in November. So I'll be back torment us all.
I think that's a really good point, Susie, that you know, and for us, when we're talking about patient education, like the stories that resonate rather than the bullet points. So that's a good example of that. You just can't process or stick with just little bites of information unless I think they're woven into the story. I think that's the way we generally work. So it is so important again to have patient support groups where it's just much more the information is much more.
Yeah, well, like I said to you before, my family were supportive of me going over. It was only when I came back, 3 of them said to me, I was very sceptical of you going over, but I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to upset you. You know, and I was very proud of myself going over for surgery because I thought I was going to come back like this, but obviously I didn't. But and now I'm kind of regretting telling people that I actually had surgery. Because I'll give you one example, the lollipop lady in my son's school, she's a bit mad, but I'd see her every day going over, and she said to me, "Geez, you look great." And every time I see her, she said, "You look great, what's your secret?" Like, and I told her. And then they broke up for the summer, and then last week, 2 weeks on, they went back to school. I drive out in the mornings, so she sees me and I stopped and said, "Hi Pauline, how are you?" She says, "Oh, you must be like that now, I can't wait to see you later." And I was like, oh, I haven't walked by her since. So I could make me walk around to me now, so I'm just afraid to walk by her, but I kind of regret telling people now, but I'm also proud that I did it because I feel I've more confidence. It never held me back going on holiday. I always go on a few holidays a year, but I always dread the seatbelts, and now I don't have to worry about that. I'd always be looking down to see if anybody's arms were hanging out. Am I going to hit off them walking down to the toilet, or, you know, that kind of way. But now that's stopped that. I don't suffer with anxiety around, but it's just a worry, a fear that you have, but I don't have that anymore. I would like to lose more weight. I don't want to go back to where I was. I really don't, but I can actually see it happening in my head, if you know what I mean, because I can't stop eating. It's not that I can't stop eating. I feel like once it's there, it has to be eaten, and it has to be eaten by me. And my son is the same. He even said to me last week, he's 23, and he's putting on weight, and he says, "Will you stop buying chocolate?" Because I'm putting on weight. So I don't know what to do.
I think fascinating that Tracy said she never touched chocolate before surgery, and these are things we have to navigate in the support groups, is that people have such high expectations of surgery. I'm fixed. And like Shell said, for her it was chronic pain. She never thought she'd have chronic pain after surgery. With Tracy, she never thought she'd eat chocolate. And we actually had somebody on our group meeting last night who's going for surgery soon, and she said, "Sorry, I've heard 3 people say about regain. I didn't think that was possible." Yeah. So we're navigating that all the time, that we don't want to burst somebody's bubble who's about to go for surgery, but we have to sort of share the reality too. Yeah. But there are stories, and it's quite difficult with the stigma, that people ask us directly, what do we think of people going abroad for surgery? And ideally, like Claire said earlier, the ideal world, everybody could come here, get their surgery, it could be a great quick pathway, but that's right now not happening. And there are a lot of people who are going away for surgery, some who need it for chronic obesity management, but others who don't, who may be of, sort of lesser health problems. But that's where they're at that time, that they think they need that and they need the support. So what we try and say is that, well, they just need to make sure their GP knows, or somebody knows that's a healthcare that can pick up that, sort of support when they come back. And many of them are going without that, and that's our worry.
So you mean they wouldn't meet the criteria here?
They wouldn't meet the criteria, and this is quite difficult when we've talked, Karen said about it being on the media, and there'd be interviews and people would say, "Well, I had to go to Turkey because there's a 5-year waiting list to get into Loughlinstown." And you're going, well, you're about 11 or 12 stone. You probably wouldn't be referred to Loughlinstown. And that, again, is the stigma that they feel they have to justify their reason for going. And it's the waiting list here, when really it's not. So we have to try and support so many different people in so many different categories, for want of words, that it's quite difficult. We do hear the stories, which I'm sure you're aware of in your profession, that my brother has a group of friends, they're all into their football and they'd all go to the pub on a Saturday. One guy has what you would call typically a beer belly, but he's incredibly fit and active and healthy, and I don't think he has any health impairments. They were all going to Turkey to get their teeth done. They were given the information about bariatric surgery, and he decided, sure, I'll have that. And he went. He came home. He ended up in Beaumont Hospital with sepsis, and they said to him, "What's wrong?" And he said, "I had tummy surgery, was exactly what he said. And they went, which one? I don't know. He literally did not even know what bariatric surgery he had. And that to us is the scariest prospect for any patient, because we know, and you're hearing Tracy talking about the struggles now, we know how hard it is with the support we have, with the knowledge we have. I cannot imagine how those people are coping with no support and no knowledge. It's the marketing for the surgery abroad is aggressive, and it's the only word for it. On Facebook at the moment, there's 2 clinics coming to Dublin in September and October. Because in the support groups I'm in and anything I'm doing online, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever, surgery, you know, obesity, I'd be typing those words. I cannot go online at the moment without seeing an ad for a clinic coming here, you know, saying what they're going to be selling. And they tried to buy one of our Facebook support groups that has 2,000 members in it. And when that didn't work, they then had people with Facebook profiles joining the group, and within the group would say, oh, I went to Turkey. Do you want me to put you in touch with the rep? She's lovely. And then they're blocked and thrown out of the group. It is a constant vigilance, because they are targeting people who are vulnerable, because Tracy said she did extreme research, and she did, but others aren't. And they could be caught at that time when they haven't done the research and they're going to the wrong clinic maybe, because Tracy's clinic did give her all of that care and the support and bloods. Some people come home and say, I'm 3 days post-op. What am I supposed to be eating? Or do I have to get bloods done? And they're the clinics that they shouldn't be going to. So we don't stigmatise and say, don't go to a clinic we know is bad. We just say, make sure you've done your research, make sure you've, you know, but the marketing is aggressive, which is really, really scary.
That's really good. There's 2 dilemmas that I think we're here, and I'm going to try to verbalise them while I'm here anyway. First of all is that concept of commercialised procedures for a chronic disease, and the heterogeneity of people going for it, and the heterogeneity of quality of care that you get. So, you know, we can fully understand why people are, particularly when the services are so poor here, that why people, you know, end up. And us, when we go and face people, how do we support that appropriately? How do we give appropriate messages? I don't think we have the answer to that, by the way. So that is a dilemma that each of us will face for each patient. And then, just getting your opinions on those things, I think you've alluded to it anyway. But the other thing, the other dilemma we're having, something that you talked about, is the sharing. You know, the pros and cons of sharing. Particularly when there is weight regain. I know you've an anecdote to tell about.
We were talking, yeah.
So, I don't know, first of all, can you see the dilemmas that we would have to we're in this no man's land as well? What do you think about that?
Do you want that?
No, you want.
Yeah, it is. It's there's actually quite a lot of people who don't tell people they've had bariatric surgery. But when you've had bariatric surgery, it does impact your life in so many ways. And so after my surgery, I would think I was maybe 2 years post-op, and I drove 40 minutes to Blanchardstown Shopping Centre. My car broke down and I had to wait for a recovery truck to come, who kept saying he'd be here any minute. So I was 5 hours without food, and I had the most blinding headache you would imagine. It's not hunger. It was this, like, it was mixture, I think, of dehydration and lack of food. So I learned, bring food in your bag. And you'd be out and about and you'd take your own food out of your bag, and people go, what are you doing? And I could openly say, I've had bariatric surgery. I have to bring food with me. I have to eat every 2 to 3 hours. And so you have to plan every single day, don't you? Like, where you can eat, what you can eat, whether you have accessible food. My partner was in hospital in the Mater, serious surgery, and I was visiting him every day and was allowed to stay with him for the whole day. In a hospital, all there was Danish and cake and scones. And so I had 4 days post-bariatric surgery of the most horrific food and dumping and everything else. And so every day post-bariatric surgery is planning and, you know, navigating that. But that's very hard if you don't want to tell people in your life or your colleagues in work why are you different. So a lot of people say they've had gallbladder surgery because they don't want people to know. Like Tracy said, they don't want the judgment of, so how are you doing now? Because people ask you constantly, what is your weight now? And you feel like saying, well, I don't ask you, how's your HbA1c levels today? Like, you know, leave me alone. So we were chatting about a story, and in our support group, we try and set some sort of rules in a way. One girl was walking down the street with her son, and she bumped into a neighbour who, she's in the group too, but the neighbour's husband said to her, oh, I believe you had bariatric surgery. How are you getting on with the weight loss? And she hadn't told her son. So she came on to us saying, I thought this was a private group, and oh my God, and now all my neighbours are going to know, and I'm mortified. And that is the difficulty, is there's shame around having had any treatment, and as we said, feeling, Shell said it, that thought of failure of arriving to this service. But then it's your own circle at home, your family, your friends, you might not want to know. But bariatric surgery changes your life, and it's very hard to hide that. So it's a constant minefield.
Yeah.
Very good. Thanks for that. And then can you see I suppose it's really good that your story was for travelling and brought you a very, very good outcome.
Yeah.
But even you had said that, I don't feel like I'm doing so well because now there's a little bit of weight regain. And like those type of things, I suppose, as an MBT, we would have those conversations all the time. And you're right, part of that story, we say that to people all the time, but they don't hear it until it's the time, or until it's had anecdotes, etc. So, can you see the dilemma that we are in? What's your opinion on the dilemma these healthcare professionals in the room have been? How do I package this? What do I say? Do I say yes, it sounds like a good idea, or no, that sounds like a terrible idea?
Oh, that's a hard one really to answer.
It's hard to put into words.
Yeah, I suppose it would depend on the person, I suppose, would it?
I think knowing that every person who comes to this service is an individual. So I know quite often when I would start off at a consultation and say, I'm Susie, and what's your weight? Type 2 diabetes, and I know I'm being put into this pigeon box. And I'm like, but I've polycystic ovaries, and I've depression, and I've a knee injury, and all right, I'll talk about that in a minute. Type 2 diabetes, tell me about that. You've never treated a Susie before. And I'm coming in with all my anxieties and history, which is different to Tracy, which is different to Shell. And knowing that anxiety is there, if somebody doesn't come back after their first appointment, don't judge that they aren't bothered to lose weight, because there's so much going on behind that story. Yeah. Especially when it comes to the point of deciding about surgery, because you've heard, it's not an easy choice at all. So that's, we don't have all the answers. We're all just plodding on and taking every day by day. It's all we can do.
But I think that's one of the reasons we were keen today to have somebody talk about their experiences abroad, because I think as healthcare professionals, we often see the very bad side of where people run into complications. You're talking about you guys getting targeted with just all the good stories. So you have these extremes, and of course the reality is we're in the middle and murky and not black and white and difficult to tease out, and there aren't necessarily right or wrong answers to it.
We have people who come back from surgery and say, I'm able to eat probably a full dinner after 3 weeks. I don't think they did the surgery. How could I find out? We don't know what to answer them. Yeah. We don't know what to answer them. It's really, really difficult. Yeah.
It's a really good point. Another thing I'd just like to ask about, because I think it's very important for us to understand, because you alluded to it a few times, and I know you have your own story with which you've shared before, but that feeling of weight regain, and if you're ready for it, you're not ready for it, how nice to know the support group and other anecdotes there really helps people. But what's that like? How do you navigate that? Do you want to tell your story about the city?
My own regain. I've been speaking as a patient advocate since 2016 with Kathy and the others in ASOI, and then I started speaking in Europe, sat with a lot of patient advocates from other countries, started learning about obesity as a chronic relapsing disease, know what stigma is, sat with Arya Sharma in 2019, yet I still hate bumping into an old school friend, because they will be looking at me and going, oh my God, she's piled on weight since I saw her at 18. Or, okay, so to put in context, I bumped into an old school friend in the supermarket, and she's like, oh my God, you've lost so much weight. I had gone from 25 to 11 and then back up to 14 or 15. I went into my mother's house and she says, are you going to eat crackers, Susie? Really? You're piling the weight back on. Within a space of 5 minutes, I went from going, yay, to, it's constant. Living with excess weight is every single day of your life. You don't get to shed it off. It's part of, stigma's there. Family can make a comment, colleagues. It is incredibly difficult, but the stigma for weight regain is worse than the first time around. Definitely a lot worse. without a shadow of a doubt. I think nearly everybody would say that. Regain is worse.
It was fixed by
Yeah.
whatever the treatment was.
Yeah. When I first came here, I thought it was my food disorder. Fully fixated that Ruth was going to solve all my problems. Poor Ruth. And it was the team. And I think I came back for a second round of appointments. I wasn't ready the first time. Hadn't got a clue at the time. But it's the shame with the weight regain, and then specifically with bariatric surgery, because especially, do you know, we haven't even discussed this much, the difference between the sleeve and the bypass. In the groups, we have people say, oh, you had the gold standard bypass. No, I only had the sleeve. And as moderators, we have to step in and go, no, they're both as effective. Now, we have our ICPO magazines, and Helen wrote a piece for it, and I think Ruth wrote us a piece. We've tried to bring in as much facts that we can say, just read this, because it's, I don't know.
No, actually, when COVID hit and there was phone meetings, there was something that Colin said to me on our meeting. You wouldn't remember, but I remember. Well, he just sticks to my mind that he said, it's not your fault. And I said to you, but I could say no and not eat these. And he says, you're not understanding. It's not your fault. It's like it's a disease, and that still plays in my mind. Like that you said, it's not your fault. I still have to get it into my head. That's not my fault. That it is a disease. That I can't just say no. I'd love to be able to say no. I mean, yeah, I do say no, and I can put it away, but it's mental. It's there. It's in your head. Like I have to eat that.
I think that's lovely what you just said, that Colin may not remember it because you're talking to people day in, day out. You're all talking to people day in, day out. To get that feedback, that's something you said possibly 4 or 5 years ago has stuck with Tracy.
2 years ago, yeah.
And that's what's so important, is that your words to any patient you talk to will matter.
Yeah, absolutely. But right now I'm still thinking, like, even though I only had the surgery a year and a few months ago, I'm thinking, I might get a bypass now down the line. You know what I mean? That's what I'm thinking, to try and lose the extra bit of weight. But don't get me wrong, I am happy. I'm not trying to be on a bikini in a beach somewhere. I am happy with what I am, but it's just the shame of people knowing that I've gone for surgery and that I should be real skinny walking down the road when they see me next, that kind of way. And then when I do walk in the room, are they thinking, oh God, she didn't lose that much weight, that kind of way. But I don't know.
And that's something that has come up, as when somebody said about the societal stigma. Why do you care about a stranger on the street who stares and looks at you? And, because people, particularly when you be at your heavier side, they look away, they look back, and then there's like a scorn. It's microaggressions. And I think it has taken us all a long while to realise we don't care what that person thinks. It reflects what we think of ourselves. And that's very, very hard to admit, that that's actually what I feel about me. And I need to work on that.
Organizations, I'm just thinking, we've had this conversation before, the science of behavioural change. And in fact, we designed this logo 10 years ago or something. We have the word change. Such an accusation. The one here is you work so hard. It's not change, but support.
Yeah.
So, that's a better word for me.
Do you know what my biggest fear was? Believe it or not, kids, they just say what's in their mouths and they come out. And I remember it was a good few years ago, and I wouldn't have been as big, but I said, Mammy, look at that fat girl there, that kind of way. And I always had a fear around kids. Are they going to turn around and say I'm fat? That kind of way, because they don't have any filters. They just say what's on their mind. And that was my biggest fear, like being in a group of kids or something,
Thank you very much for that. That was amazing. And one thing I definitely have taken from that is the fear that you said. And I'm a dietitian now that's moved into one of these hubs where we do weight management. And I just think when setting up our service, we're sending out letters to get people to, there's long waiting lists, 3-year waiting lists to see a dietitian for weight management in our area. And, if someone doesn't respond, they're potentially discharged.
Yeah.
Or if you come to see us once and you don't come back again, potentially discharged. And the fear piece, I guess, I never thought about that. I'm brand new into this area of dietetic.
Okay, so
how do we navigate around that?
Well, I don't know whether your service is very rigid to say black and white, they haven't responded, we have to cut them off. So I don't know. Okay, so quite a lot of people in our support group say, I'm on my 3rd appointment. I'm not going. This was before COVID. I'm not going to go because I've not lost any weight this month. And we're like, That's the time to go. How can the team figure it out if you don't go now? But they might, like, they're investing so much time in me, I'm letting them down. They might be annoyed with me. No, they won't. They can only learn from, and, you know, you learn, they learn, but this is the time to go. But it's ingrained in the shame with the stigma, with the feeling it's your fault. And this is why we've got to keep sharing. We said this at the start about us standing up here. We find, I've spoken at a lot of these things, and unfortunately you'll see my name at a lot of things because we can't get other people to speak. They won't speak because they feel, they'll think I'm just doing it to get sympathy. We don't want anybody's sympathy, but if people don't understand the full reality of what most of us have hidden, because around my family, my mum came to us something like this, she said, I nearly cried. I'm actually going to get upset. She said, I didn't know you hid so much pain. I didn't know the shame. I didn't know any of it. Because we hide it really, really well. We're very sneaky at that. So if we don't share it and we don't let you all know how real it is, how can you treat it properly? You can't, you know, so sorry. But this is like years doing this. It's still emotive. It's, you know, it's upsetting. Yeah.
Yeah, like I only know Susie a year since just before I started research. It'll be 2 years now, actually, probably November. And I only met her face to face for the ICPO launch, which was only in July. But I felt like I'd known her for years and years and years. Like, she's a fabulous speaker, even on the meetings, like, she's a fabulous speaker, and I'd be lost without her now, to be honest with you.
But I'd be lost without everybody in the groups too. It works back, you know, it's what we get from each other. Yeah.
The support is amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Can I ask you, actually, I'm also going starting in the hubs, but I'm in primary care at the moment. I see a lot of people who have obesity, and I have some patients who I think would really benefit from the Locklanstown service, but I don't know how to broach it with them, because I often worry that it'll damage the relationship, as if I'm saying, oh, you're a failure, you haven't managed with me, so therefore you need surgery, and that's not what I mean at all.
Make it one of many options. So if you're having a discussion, say, you know, I don't know if you know of all the different options, say there's a peer-to-peer support group. Start with the less intimidating maybe one. If you want to talk to people, then there's Locklanstown, then there's this. I don't know if you're aware of it. It's wording. If you say, I think you should go to Locklanstown, I'd be like, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. But if you say there's this, this and this, I'll be thinking, right, I'm going to take that home and read that properly, and I'm going to Google that, and that one looks good, and no, that's not for me. So if it's part of it's not seen as it's been pushed on you. Colin and Kathy will know this for years with the Locklanstown support group that we have here, that we've been running. Maura started up and we're running it 10 years. Colin would say, I have this patient who really could do it, you guys. And I'd say, yeah, and I emailed them. And they'll answer saying, yeah, Colin told me to come to join you, that you guys are what'll help me. And we're like, well, we mightn't be able to, but we'll try. Come and join us, join the group. Nothing, no answer. And then Colin would say, that patient came to me and said you never let them in the group. No, we did reach out to them. If it's almost not what they see as forced on them, you should do this, they'll go, oh, I should do that. And then they go, oh, no, I'm not ready for that. So it has to be a gentle approach. Just, you know, it's like the 5 A's, ask the permission to talk about it. Are you ready? I think you'll learn fairly soon the signals that like body language tells a lot whether somebody's ready for that or not, or where they're at with themselves, you know, because we get quite a lot that you say these patients could do with joining. And I think nearly because you've told them to, they'll do it for a while because they want to please you. But then they don't engage in the actual support. And we make it clear that we say, we don't tell any of the team who's joined this group. They won't know if you joined us or not, so it doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? It's a private patient-led support group. So, yeah, I would give it as one of the options. Yeah.
As you say that, should I maybe say to them at their first appointment to say, coming to see me is one option, but these are all the other things that may be available if you'd like them. Right.
And I would put that in the context of that you're coming here to start this, and because believe it or not, I don't know about Tracy, but when I was starting here, I was already thinking ahead to what happens then when I'm discharged from here. So they're thinking, I'm starting on, say if it's a 10-week program, well, I've tried diets for 10 weeks before and it hasn't worked. What do I do at the end of it? So yeah, having that conversation, say, by the way, this is the start of this process, but did you know there's also this and this and this? But sure, we can talk about that later. You plant the seed and then come back to it. Yeah.
It's a really interesting point as well, because for any of the dietitians who can review change training, like that's one things we're taught is you go through a range of options with people, and that's considered, best practice or a good way of having this like that's inevitable.
Like, because we've tried and tested so many different things, we're already projecting to the failure. We're already thinking this is probably not going to work. What happens next? Because we don't know how good you're going to be. Do you know what I mean? So, and thankfully the service here is fantastic. So, Anything else? I think we're all done. Any last questions before we go?
Is there like one thing that one tip or recommendation you could, say either pre or post surgery or leading up that you would leave us that we could take home today? What would it
be? It doesn't even have to be specific about surgery, that every single story is different. Every person is different. And to mind your words, how you talk to anybody about it, that your words could be seen as judgmental. You might think they are, but they could be seen, So if somebody's gone abroad and has had no research and you think they've done something foolish, well, if somebody lay out in the sun and got sunburnt, would you talk to them in any sort of a tone? You wouldn't. So, yeah, just...
Be kind.
Yeah. And I'm sure you are, but just one word. So it's positive and negative narrative. If you say to somebody, did you not know you should have done this? Or did you not know about Loughlinstown? Did you not know? Rather than, did you know? I won't put that wall up if you say, did you know? So, yeah.
I didn't tell my GP that I was going over to Turkey. And I was actually afraid when I came back, and it took me about 3 months to ring her and tell her. And I had you couldn't talk to the doctor, so I told the receptionist that I needed her to ring me. She rang me. She goes, "Oh my God, I'm so excited! I'm so excited that you went, and I'm delighted that you went, and tell me all about it." So she was really enthusiastic with me in that. So yeah, I was delighted with that, because a lot of people don't get the support from their GPs, so I was happy with that.
Oh, that one word, support.
Support, yeah.
And also the other thing that I've heard is just making sure you know a little bit about their journey, rather than just assume making assumptions.
Ask questions.
Honestly, I think we'll leave it at that and move on. But Tracy, thank you very much for your story, an amazing story.
Thanks for having me.
Tracy doesn't know that she's going to be asked to do a lot more from now on.
Obviously, Tracy's been fantastic. Susie is just an amazing speaker. She knows so much about what we do. She knows the language that we speak, her in-depth understanding of the disease, and the empathy and support she gives to the patient. The number of hours per week that lady puts in is remarkable. So just a round of applause for Susie particularly. It's just amazing.